I'm not live or anything, so you're safe.
But it's kind of live.
Not really. I just don't want to have to edit.
Well, we're going to have to edit this enough.
Yes.
I mean, it's probably perfect.
Right. We'll nail it first time,
Yeah.
for sure. All right. So we don't even have GarageBand open.
We are ready.
What a disaster already.
It's ready for us.
It's always on. Probably better just say yes. All right. We're just going to hit record and see what happens here.
Yeah.
And action, Kate.
Welcome to Ticker Talk with Max and Kate.
Welcome, everybody.
I want to know what the ticker part of the talking means.
So are we going to attempt to describe what ticker training is?
Yeah, we say this is Ticker Talk, and we have coined this, this phrase.
Got it.
And although our members probably know, it's ticker like the heart, and we do
Right.
heart rate based training, so that must be it. But
Got it.
I have a feeling that they don't understand that the ticker part is actually part of a bigger picture, a deeper
Right, here at Treetown, you mean?
at Treetown.
Yeah, so ticker training, it's basically just the best way for me to describe this is CrossFit Treetown will eventually be like CrossFit Treetown powered by ticker training. So that's going to be essentially our programming and then our actual what happens inside the walls at CrossFit Treetown. So everything that is encompassed will be described through with kind of the term ticker training.
Right, so we can have CrossFit powered by ticker. We'll have GOAT powered by ticker.
Correct.
Ticker is the umbrella.
You got it.
The master plan.
You got it. So hopefully this will just continue to develop and morph, but we're starting to get a pretty good idea of everything that ticker encompasses.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the programming. It's also the use of Dr. Maffetone's work, using our MAF scores, creating a healthier diet with utilizing, what we've been talking about with Claire and Health Claire. And it's also encompassing, our body composition test and really in our PNOE test, which is a metabolic analyzer, which we're getting very close to being able to start utilizing here as part of ticker and our programming at Treetown.
Yeah, our members might have seen myself and you and Andy wearing that
Yes, Brian.
fun math mask and working out. Let's dig into that just a little bit, like
Sure.
a sneak peek preview of what the PNOE is and what it's going to afford our members.
Yeah, so the PNOE is a metabolic analyzer, so it can help us define our aerobic zones, our maximum fat burning zone, our lactate, our anaerobic threshold, our VO2 max. It can help guide us as we change as athletes or change as people. All of that stuff is always, it's not always changing, but the more fit you get, the more you want to be able to keep up with that kind of stuff to get the most out of your training. So
pairing a PNOE test with our programming now and the heart rate monitors at a basic level is when I got on the thing, it gave me a good idea of where my aerobic zone was. So that way when we have a MAP WOD, any sort of MAP training, I know specifically my zones where I'm aerobic versus anaerobic.
Right. And why is that important, right?
Right. So that way I know that I'm using the training to its fullest potential and I'm not just spinning my wheels and coming in every day.
Correct.
And also knowing my top end, that I know that if I am going to push myself, how hard do I have to push myself to make sure I'm also training the top end? And again, just not working really hard for an undetermined amount of time.
Right.
Or a determined amount of time for that matter. The other thing that was really interesting that I found on the data from these is how we can tell when we're fat burning versus when we're burning sugar for fuel.
Right.
Let's dig into that a little bit. Like having these precise graphs. We have a computer screen in front of us for those in Radioland, that we can see where at what heartbeat we change over into burning fat versus
right. So I've pulled up Brian's last test here, and Brian just showed, at least on this day, Brian utilizes and burns fat as a fuel source extremely well. You may or may not be able to see this even in the video, but what I can see from this graph here is, we did a ramp test on Brian where he was just on an assault bike that just increased in intensity. So his heart rate slowly climbed, and it's on this graph here if you can see that in the monitor. But essentially throughout his test, until Brian said uncle, he continued to burn fat as the primary fuel source through this. And I can see that in a couple different graphs here, but strangely enough, right? So we've been using Dr. Maffetone's work of 180 beats minus your age as your maximum aerobic function.
And there's a lot of science that went behind figuring out this number that Dr. Maffetone
so
did.
He spent 30 years figuring this stuff out.
Right.
And funny enough, if you look at these graphs and you see the steepest part of Brian's curve, and then you find that same point on his heart rate, it's at his MAF. It's at about 154 beats.
And you found with yourself and Andy, it was very similar as well.
Yeah, the cool thing about this in utilizing the Pnoe in part of these tests is, a few different things. But for me, it's nice to see that yes, my maximum aerobic function is 180 beats minus my age, or 137, but I actually don't really accumulate any real fatigue until about above 162 beats. So what does that mean for me? Well, if I were to, in my training here with our map, I know as long as I continue to work as close as I can to my MAF, I'm aerobically training. So even if I get into the mid 150s, I'm still technically doing aerobic work. I wouldn't want to train there all the time because that is not going to help me develop my ceiling, but it's definitely going to help build my ability to do work with oxygen as opposed to going into anaerobic.
So relating this to the Ticker program, this is going to be something that Ticker clients.
Yep.
Let's get into that, the Ticker program. So we're going to be CrossFit Treetown powered by Ticker. Are we going to have CrossFit still?
Yeah. So, we're
rolling this out as ooh, look, shiny new program. Let's talk about, is this a shiny new program? Is this a gym-wide something that everybody is going to get? Or
we'd love to see everybody go through this process. It's just a matter of whether we can make that possible for everybody that's here.
Right.
But we are working on our new intake for new members to be a part of this. And essentially, so if you were to come in to Treetown and to learn about us, there's a whole new aspect of how that's going to go about. And once you sign up, once you kind of heard what we're about and you decide yes, this is for me, I want to be a part of this, we have a few things that are going to be included in that, right? So you come in for a consult and you're going to sit down and we're going to go through a little bit of an education process. We're going to learn about Dr. Maffetone and his method. You're going to take a little survey that he has. It takes a fair bit of time. We're going to talk about maybe logging some food, during this time and try to get you to do some food logs for at least 3 or 4 days. We're going to do a review of your MAF. After we educate you a little bit on Maffetone, we're going to do that survey, and then we're going to review that, see where we could work on it, give you some action plans to help. Then we're going to do a Pnoe test, which is what we've just kind of already talked about a little bit, so we can help define these zones for you. The greatest thing about doing this Pnoe test is if I can show somebody without fail that if they stay between, for Brian here, essentially 122 beats to 154 beats, if he keeps his heart rate in that range, he's going to be burning 100% fat as a fuel source and he'll become a very, very efficient athlete. Brian has already reported that he very rarely gets sore anymore during his workouts. Pretty much it's helped him heal and repair his shoulder as well. So it's been really cool to see that aspect. So you can imagine if I'm able to show, you or the potential member here, this information, right? The ability to keep yourself in those zones.
We can give you a zone to work within, and with relative certainty, if you stay within these zones, that it is not going to stress your body out
past
to the point
of
breaking.
Correct.
Then
it's something that it's something that you very much can handle.
Right. Then your goal is to get as much work done in that zone
Correct.
as humanly possible. Now, that being said, you come in, you have these parameters that you want to work out in, and then you come in and you approach CrossFit or you approach GOAT, and you have your training and you have your zones. Mm-hmm. And you're going to personalize your, scale your workouts up,
Correct.
down, however, to make sure that you are getting work done in your zones. Mm-hmm. At what point do you call it enough? At what point do you look at I am hitting every one of these workouts, and does this happen? Within my zones, and I'm doing RX weight, and I am going as fast as I feel like I could possibly go. Then what? Is that another, do we frequently retest these? Are these zones set?
It's probably time to retest your zones.
Right.
Make sure that we're still on target. It might just mean that you've become a really aerobic athlete,
right,
or person.
Right.
And that, congratulations.
Well, that's a different benchmark than winning the top of the whiteboard
Correct.
every day, right?
Correct. That person probably is starting to win the whiteboard.
Well, they probably are.
Right.
But it's just one of those things, we're going to sit down in the beginning and set these zones, and
yes,
then you're just going to work at them
Correct.
for a while.
So, and you just have to be patient with yourself, especially if you come in here carbohydrate intolerant, stressed out, not sleeping well,
right.
unfit. You're just going to have to be patient, because we're going to consistently probably try to slow you down,
right,
and to help you adapt to this type of athlete, because although it's perceived as easy effort exertion, right? It's sometimes for people going for a walk, it's for the person that is not very aerobic, it's actually a very difficult test and task to be able to perform.
So you mentioned going for a walk, and you've mentioned stress, sleep, diet. And this is leading me into ticker, the word, this buzzword that we have going on here in this podcast, mm-hmm. as not just being, a type of training and a type of programming, but more like a lifestyle.
Yeah.
More it's not just walking in the door of CrossFit Treetown and
Correct.
saying time for ticker training.
Yeah.
But this is something bigger.
That's a great point, Kate. So with ticker, and we kind of talked about this a little bit when we first started, this involves more than just the training.
Right.
This is a whole education process about, diet, food, exercise, how to become a fat burner, why that's important. We're going to also, do some body composition testing on you to help you to define
and see results.
See if we're actually if the proof is really in the pudding, right? And we actually are making changes.
Probably not pudding.
Right. That is the proof in the avocado.
There we go.
Right. But also, during this initial time, we're going to do some goal setting. Based on a lot of this will be based on where you currently are, what your MAF test told us, and what the Pinoy test told us.
Right.
So all of this will be an assessment kind of process to build where you're going,
right,
and what you're capable of, and an action plan to ensure your success.
So this is kind of how we as programmers look at, the gym as a big picture. That obviously it is not just pulling magic movements out of a hat.
Correct.
Right? It's not just I feel like they should do toes to bar today.
Right.
Because that would be fun. But being able to break this down into this, data that we can show results on, we can plot in real time.
Yeah.
What about for people that, have been CrossFitting forever, want to change up their CrossFit, even members here, current members,
Sure.
How do they dive into this ticker training? How's it going to affect them?
I would still like to see them do a consult with us, so we can do a little more educating on the MAF program, and then do a PNOE test, so we can show them these graphs and explain to them the better they get and the more they do this, like where they are burning fat as their primary fuel source, the more volume of work they can do, right? The more without creating fatigue. It's almost just like, how much time do you want to devote to this? It's not it's not how much can you handle. It's more about how much time do you want to spend at 100 and potentially 40 beats per minute, or your MAF score, to create the change that you're willing to do. Right. The more volume you do, the faster your results will get and be. But most of us have jobs and places to be. So, so that athlete just, doing a PNOE, being educated on MAF will take their training to the next level.
I listened to a podcast this morning, and one of the takeaways from that was the statement of, you have to sustain the aerobic volume before you can hit your max potential. So starting out now, we've been doing this MAP training for a while, and, surprise, it's not going anywhere. We're going to continue on because it's working. We're seeing great results.
Right.
Building this aerobic base.
Yeah, so let me touch on what you're kind of, where Fitzy or James Fitzgerald is kind of going with that, I believe.
Yeah.
And I can kind of relate that with Dr. Maffetone and that focused in training. So just to give you a little heads up, all of this training that we're doing with the MAF, Maffetone did most of it with runners, cyclists, and swimmers, triathletes. And what they did is essentially they did all of their running at 180 minus their age. So let's just use 150 for this athlete. That's their MAF, okay? And he would do tests. He would just schedule tests on the track. You're going to go run a mile at your MAF. And when you stop progressing with your training or with your test, where your times are no longer going down, now is when we start seeing that we might add some other intensity to it. Got it? Where we'll add intervals and things like that. This is where I believe Fitzgerald is kind of going with this. There's no reason to add any of that other stuff, that fancy, fun, threshold, gross work, until you've reached your potential aerobically.
Right. So he said in his podcast, I wrote it down, if you can't recover from something, then you can't express it. So it's one of those, until you are expressing something, until you are getting to being able to run that mile, and then you add that interval, you have to have something to recover to. So athletes that come in and go all out every day, and that was great, and come out, the next day, if you don't have that where you can hit a peak and then need 3 minutes to recover from that peak, then that's your aerobic base. That's what you need to be training. Which I'm looking at, we're saying now, new members are going to come in, they're going to set these goals, we're going to do these tests. So to bring this back around, it's for this. It's establishing kind of where they are for the base. Because then
way to bring that back, Kate.
Yeah. Because then think about where we're going to throw them into the CrossFit gym with the members we've had forever.
Right.
So even our current members, let's get you a base now.
Correct.
Let's bring you into a ticker program where we talk about goals and where you are, figure out where your base is, so we can figure out where your intensity actually lies.
Correct. Where are you on this scale here of your zones?
Right.
Right? Because remember, the goal here is to help you do more work with less strain and effort.
Right.
That's when we know we're starting to win. When you're starting to become healthier, when you are starting to put less strain and stress on your body to do your old work. And that's really the ultimate goal of all of this ticker.
Right. So if you can
how to do that.
For the current athletes, our current people, or someone new to the gym that has, maybe they're moving into town, or maybe they're leaving their gym.
Sure.
To find something else, to take that current level of work that stresses their body out. And we know it stresses them out because we can see it in their heart rate. We can see it in their demeanor. But to make that aerobic.
See it in their red face.
Right. To make that aerobic, what's their new ceiling? You know, if that
Right.
was how you had to push yourself to get before,
Right.
then what if you make that easy? Then what happens if you push yourself?
And what's going to be cool is initially hitting their old numbers is not going to, like, and you can relate to this just from your 7-minute test you did the other day, right?
Right.
You got done and you're like 15 minutes later, you're like, I'm feeling pretty good already. Whereas in the past, we would have like needed 3 days. Right. So that's what the new member is going to feel. It's just like, you know, those really, really hard efforts, when we do that stuff, they're going to recover really fast and be ready for it again, because they've got such a huge aerobic system with the ability to flush lactate and to repair and to rebuild so quickly. So
I want to touch on that intense effort. So we did a 7-minute intense workout.
Yep.
And I went all out. I went hard. I hit almost to the top of my, predetermined max heart rate. I recovered and I thought, wow, that was only 7 minutes. That wasn't anything compared to the volume I usually do. But I had stuff going on, so I still went home, went for a walk,
Sure.
carried on. The next day I was really sore.
Sure.
And it's one of those things that if I really think about it, that was intensity, and I was able to actually put in that intensity because I felt really good going into it.
Right. And that's where James is talking about it as well, like even being able to express it.
Right. And then it took me a long time to recover. I mean, I had to take a day off of...
That means you actually were able to express it.
And I don't think I've ever felt that before, where, I could come in every day and hit it hard and then come back the next day. And eventually, you're sore, like, I could use a rest day. No, that was a different kind of rest day in that my body systemically felt like I had put everything into that work.
Prior, your super hard effort was just the level of your output was, say, here, whereas, lower.
Right.
Because in the radio land, they can't see me holding my hand up here. Right. But in the real, like now, your new ceiling is actually, your perceived effort is still where it was, but your performance and your output was much higher. So that obviously is going to take some, especially for somebody that's not a super
explosive,
lactate, right, powerful athlete. That's going to be a huge stress and strain for you. And
it's one of those things that I look at, you and I are obviously doing all the things that Ticker is going to be, because we have to make sure that we live what we say.
Well, yeah, and we're testing it.
It's because of that. I can now say, like, my intensity is not going away. My intensity is better than it's ever been, even though hands down, daily, I would never choose to do a 7-minute all-out effort. I would avoid it, like, I'm busy that day.
Right.
But then the fact that I can do it says a lot about training this way and the whole program in general.
The evolution of an athlete.
Right.
And by incorporating all of these different things.
And knowing that I'm fueling myself properly. And, before my intense effort, I'd had a cucumber.
Right.
But the fact is that as a whole, as a person, I eat really well, so I know how my body's going to perform. This is not unlike, your professional athletes. The stuff that these pros do, these, career athletes.
Sure.
We're obviously just doing it on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
But if you're going to put in the time and effort to make your health a priority and actually come in every day.
We have defined and found a way to prove that it's the most efficient way.
Yeah.
This is proving it to people to know that, look, here's your graph. This is based on you. This isn't based on everyone else or what we found with the majority of people, that some people or most people should work out at 80% of their max heart rate.
Right.
We are going to be able to define it for you on that day moving forward.
Right.
And then we can retest to see if we've changed it and to see if what we're doing is making a positive impact for you.
Fitzgerald said at one point, I didn't write this down, but he commented...
So you're not quoting him directly?
I am not anymore, no. He was saying in this, Energy System podcast about how, this is volume. And we're doing a lot of volume to develop these bases so that we can show faster recovery between the efforts. We can show that intensity. We can have those pretty graphs.
We can express this level of fitness.
And we can use it we have actual physical graphs to show
Absolutely.
that. We have in the moment graphs of heart rate zones. But people love training. I mean, that's why we come in every day.
Right.
And I look at it, I have friends and I look at people in town, that if you're going to take the time to do this, why not make it count?
Effective.
If you love what you're doing and it's effective and it's affecting not just that hour that you're in the gym, but it's affecting everything you do.
Right. And then not only that, but most likely your current plan is exhausting you.
Right.
If you're adhering to the no pain, no gain exercise program, which most of society is.
Right.
To know that I can show you that no pain, no gain needs to go away, and I can prove it to you. Like, look, right here it shows you are burning the max. You are being the most efficient individual you possibly can be if you're staying from here to here, heart rate, 130 to 150. If that's who you are, why would you do it any other way?
Then take that outside the gym. We had a woman that worked out today, and then she's like, I'm going to go for a run.
Sure.
She knows her zones.
Right.
Looks at her watch.
Right.
Here she is. She can now go out for a run, and she can continue that, aerobic-based development.
Right. Because the other thing about aerobic or volume training, right, just going for runs isn't going to necessarily make you more aerobic for wall balls or kettlebell swings. And just swinging the kettlebell or doing wall balls or jumping rope aerobically, that's not necessarily going to translate to making you an aerobic runner or an aerobic rower. You need to, that's the fun thing about utilizing CrossFit in this manner, is there's so many different modalities, so many different exercises that you can practice and try to become aerobic at, that this is something that you can just do forever. And if you stay away from one thing and you haven't utilized that movement for a while, that's going to become less aerobic for you.
Right.
So it's a cool way to be able to train and to see changes. And that's why we've developed the FAF test and all of those kind of things, so we can show that you are progressing in all of these modalities and not just running.
Right.
But
no one's going to ask their just running marathon friend to help them move.
Right.
I mean, we live in a city with
Not
a ton of students, so we're moving, and people are moving all the time.
Right. You're not going to call your skinny marathoner
right.
friend.
So I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, power cleans are really handy for picking up boxes. Sure. So, what if you could do that aerobically, and you've got to move your buddy out of his apartment in 90 minutes because you were out all night the night before. And to be able to aerobically load that U-Haul, but that's the lifestyle that, you mixing it up and making your life aerobic, so to speak.
Well, and then it also, training like this, you can kind of use it as a health marker as well. So we have some tests that we do, and let's just instead of talking about our FAF test, let's just talk about being on the rower and being at my MAF score. Mm-hmm. Right, so I have a MAF of 137, and at that MAF, I can generally hold 900 calories per hour, or about 208 per 500 meters. Mm-hmm. Okay, now that's my general when I'm feeling good. Well, what's going on with me on a day that maybe I can only hold 700 calories per hour or 220 at my MAF?
Right.
That gives me a little bit of insight into maybe I'm overworked, underslept, I ate too much pizza, I ate too much ice cream. It gives me an insight to the amount of inflammation, which is a whole nother podcast that we're going to do. Just what is inflammation and why are we always talking about it? Because inflammation is really it's a huge stressor, and it's a sign that your system is overstressed.
Right.
Well, what's inflammation? Well, sore joints, your heart rate's higher than it should be during normal easy work. But what happens is outside of the gym, you start relating to not sleeping enough. How is that going to affect me overall in my overall health? Well, your MAF or your FAF test when you come to the gym, it shows how it affects you. Right. Right. So how does that help you? Well, before you open the 5th beer, you kind of start to relate and think about it a little bit. This is affecting my health.
Right.
This is having a consequence on my overall well-being. Is this worth it to me at this point is what starts to happen outside of the gym. So that's all part of the education process that when we bring them in. Trying to bring it back, Kate, somehow.
It just shows that when you come in then and you have these zones, we'll sit down with you and we'll figure out goals and zones and, numbers based on body calculations through Health Clear. It just shows when you come in and something is off, that something is off. And it may not break here. You may say, sure, I feel fine, but we can then use your hour that you choose to spend with us a day.
Not stressing you out
more. And also kind of, hey, highlighting the fact that, something is causing your body to freak out.
We can help you maybe determine that.
Right. And that could be, I blew out my neck once brushing my teeth. Clearly it wasn't that I was an over-aggressive toothbrusher. But obviously, I missed all the signs that something else was going on in my life, and that was the moment. I mean, I'm sure everybody has a story of like...
Oh, yeah, picking up a laundry basket was the first time an empty laundry basket was the first time I threw out my back.
Right, exactly. So now, having a ticker program, applying ticker to the training that you do here. So applying ticker to CrossFit, applying ticker to, everything you do, we can give you a better indication of where you are in life.
Ticker is really, like we were trying to define this, it's a bit of a lifestyle education process, a real buy-in into creating long-lasting change. And, our slogan is pace yourself. You'll start to see more of that from us. And it's not just in the workout, but in your diet plan, in your health plan, in your life.
Yeah.
Big extremes, right? Big extreme changes are really hard to maintain and hold on to. So you kind of need to pace yourself through all of this, right?
Like, taking one thing and proving it.
Correct.
Apply it.
Right. Pace yourself throughout this program and just go with it. Because if you're looking for 6 weeks of health, it's not a very big window. And if you make changes so abruptly that it doesn't become part of your actual being and your mindset, it's probably not going to be long lasting. So that's really what Ticker is about, is just creating this program. This program was going to lead to stuff that you could do at home on your own.
Yeah.
Right. And eventually you just I'm going to go do some work at my 180 minus my age and whatever that is.
Yeah.
It'll develop health, fitness, life, happiness, longevity.
Well said.
We're out. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your day.
I think that was pretty good.
You did all right today.
Huh.